it kind of came upon me. It wasn't a conscious decision that I was aware of. It was like suddenly I realized that I stopped wanting to be somewhere else. And I stopped needing to get out as much. Now, I still need to get out sometimes. I still need nature, and luckily I live right across the street from Golden Gate Park, so I can get hits of that, or I can walk 10 minutes to a very no-joke staircase to get up to Mount Sutro and feel really in nature.
That was Lily Sloane, creator, producer, and host of the podcast A Therapist Walks Into a Bar. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco. Every week on this podcast, we feature therapists, drag queens, bartenders, and other San Franciscans talking about living, working, and doing their thing here. It's a way to get to know your neighbors. Welcome to episode 38, part 1. In this podcast, Lily talks about moving from the East Coast to Petaluma, and then to San Francisco to go to college here. A few years after her move here, Lily discovered something very powerful that made her feel at home. Before we get into Lily's story, I just wanted to ask you to let us know how we're doing. It's been 9 months since we started, and we've put out nearly 40 storytellers and more than 60 episodes. It's one thing to look at our stats. It's another to hear the human reaction behind those numbers. You can drop us an email at storiedsf@gmail.com, leave a comment on our website, or say something to us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. Thanks. Here's Lily.
Yeah, so I was born on the East Coast in New York, lived in Connecticut till I was 8, and then my family moved out to Petaluma, California, just north of San Francisco when I was 8 years old.
Do you know why Petaluma? It's Connecticut to Petaluma. I'm guessing that there's not like a pipeline for that move.
Well, strangely, there might be more of one than you'd think. No, So my parents were always in the natural foods industry, and my dad ended up being offered a job at Amy's Kitchen that does the frozen organic stuff. So that was really why we came. They really needed the money and the job. And but, you know, actually it's an interesting... They gave up a lot of community to do that. And I think that in many ways, especially my mom, didn't feel like they were able to reestablish what they had given up.
Right.
But yeah, so I mostly grew up there. I feel like I have some East Coast tendencies, but I definitely identify as a Californian.
Yeah.
And when I went to college, I went to UC Santa Cruz, so still Bay Area, still also kind of like funky suburban town, sort of. It's a little bigger than Petaluma, but still coastal. And then I moved back to Petaluma, and a few years after I was back, I was ready to pursue grad school. And my sister had finished her bachelor's at California Institute of Integral Studies here in San Francisco. And when I'd gone to her graduation, I really felt the sense of belonging. Like, this place is really cool. It's really special. It incorporated a lot of things that had been values in my life and that I'd been taught around kind of Eastern spirituality, but combining that with psychology. And
specifically the Institute or San Francisco?
The school.
The school.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now I'm really like detached from a lot of that and critical of it, but it was still, I still am like, this is the best school I could have gone to. But I was in a relationship, my first long-term relationship. And so for the first year of doing school there, I was commuting on Golden Gate Transit, and not really fully being here. And when that relationship ended, something kind of clicked in me that I didn't need to live in Petaluma, and that I could live in the place where I was building community through these really close relationships with my classmates, because we were really digging into our shit as we were studying to become therapists. And so again, like for me, it was going to school there and meeting these people and really working on myself with them was such a relieving experience of community. So I was able to move here almost 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, September 2008.
Okay.
I moved here. So
right before a very exciting time in the country and a very exciting time in San Francisco.
So I got to spend...
But that's my story.
Oh, yeah, that's only yours.
Yeah. I'm the only one.
Obama was just for you. I got to spend, I got to do election night 2008 at a bar in Noe Valley with my classmates.
Nice.
Which bar was it? Some Irish bar. That was such an incredible night. I just can't even. And then I get sad even just thinking about it because of where we're at.
Yes. Hindsight.
Exactly.
Nostalgia.
Exactly.
Like that was just yesterday, but it's already nostalgic.
I know. A decade.
Yeah.
I was an adult. I was well into my 20s a decade ago, and that's kind of blowing my mind. And that I've lived here for 10 years, and this is absolutely my home. And I never lived anywhere for 10 years. My family moved a lot. And I've lived in my apartment for 9 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's longer than I lived anywhere as a kid. We didn't have much housing stability. So having my rent-controlled apartment is like my lifeline in so many ways, especially for me to be able to be, a business owner and an artist here in San Francisco. I don't know how else I could possibly do it in the current climate.
Right.
So the first 3 years I was here, though, I kept thinking eventually I'm going to move out of the city.
Right.
My nervous system was having a really hard time adjusting to being a city dweller. So
that had to do, you think, specifically with San Francisco, or maybe, like you said, you hadn't really dug in deeply anywhere before that? What do you think? There's that. So I think there's part of it, and I hadn't thought of that before you just said that. I think part of it is an expectation that I'm not going to be anywhere very long. Though also an expectation that I'm going to be within a close range of, like, I'm not going to move super far away either. I've never really done that, except when moved with my family as a small child. Yeah. So I felt like I was going to be in the Bay Area, but I kind of thought I was going to go back home. Yeah. And I don't fully know why that is about me, because I am adventurous in a lot of other ways. But golden handcuffs or golden, I mean,
I didn't have much there, but I had people. But really, I didn't have friends left over from high school. I have like one. It was more like some perceived safety of being near my family, which has since actually changed as my family has changed a lot. So my first 3 years here, I was still visiting home more frequently. I got rid of my car, so taking the bus up north more. And just this feeling of when grad school's over, I'll probably look for internships outside of the city, that the city is stressful, that, the feces on the ground is stressful, and all of that. And I am a very sensitive person. I think I've actually, within 3 years, I totally adjusted. Not that I'm not still sensitive or taking it in some way. I think my nervous system is still feeling it, but I've just gotten used to it. I'm probably more, I don't know, I've always been tense. I probably am holding my body differently to cope than maybe I did when I first got here and I didn't have those defenses up. Right. But I feel very, more street smart and like okay being out at night by myself and doing things that some people might think are not a good idea. I don't know. I'm very self-sufficient, and I hate paying extra for, Ubers. I hate Uber, but like I hate paying extra for those things. So I can be very insistent. I'm like, no, I'm going to walk all the way home or whatever it is. And it's just really important to me to, even if I feel unsafe, but it's a situation where I think I should be safe, to be like, I'm going to do it anyway because I should be able to feel safe. Public transportation is something that I absolutely use. I also go through phases where I bike a lot because that's actually the fastest way to get anywhere, the fastest and cheapest, even with having to replace multiple bikes over the years. But walking and planning to walk and planning my time that way and not having an expectation of it taking 10 minutes to drive somewhere, which is something that, I just shifted in my time here. Like I was actually glad to get rid of the burden of having a car and the payments and the insurance, and here it's super burdensome with parking and tickets and freeing up that part of my income, but also just making my life work around public transit and walking. And just it slows things down. You don't have as much of an expectation of how much you can do in a day. I kind of give myself an hour to get everywhere, many places.
Yep.
And I listen to podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to music. I get most of my exercise that way. I walk, 3.2 miles from my office home up over 17th.
Oh, wow.
Frequently, and not every time, but and it just feels good to me to be in this city in that way.
That hill is no joke.
That hill is no joke.
Yeah.
But it was something where I just and I think change happens like this a lot. As a therapist, I notice this in my clients, I notice it in myself, where it's not like, and now I have changed,
right,
and now I am changing. It's more like, oh, whoa, I forgot that I used to worry about this thing so much, a year ago, 2 years ago. And now I didn't even realize I'm not really worrying about that as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Or I'm not doing that habitual thing I did as much as I used to. So that's my experience of change in general.
Had you, at that point, had you built up like a community, a group of friends? And
yeah,
because that'll keep you in a place too.
Absolutely. Like the community, loving my apartment and feeling at home there, and also not feeling like I could move. I mean, absolutely, community was a big part of it. And at the time, it was more therapists and internship and community around that, and groups I was part of, or organizations I was volunteering for, and that's continued to be true even though that community has changed for me, and now it's more at BFF.FM. That has really changed my life in the last year, and the community that I'm starting to establish through podcasting and all the Bay Area audio people who are doing such cool work. But I think that one of the things that I noticed happen too was the way that my mind opened through living in an urban environment and challenging a lot of my privilege and a lot of my worldview that came from just like lack of exposure and not really getting good modeling around what it even looks like to be more aware and outside of myself. And I had a lot of experiences here that were challenging or beautiful or all of the above, where I started to picture more and more how important it felt to me to be in an environment that did that for me, and also to someday raise a child in an environment like that. And now that is where I feel pretty much all the way like I want to live in a city.
Do you want to share any of those experiences?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, this is a story that I kind of go to show when I talk more about the process of waking up to my white privilege. So your first internship when you're becoming a therapist is called practicum, and you do that while you're in school. And I was on a skilled nursing unit at CPMC, the Davies campus over by DuBose Park. And so mostly elderly people and people who are just severely, who were really ill, so needed a lot of care, palliative care, things like that. And there was a mix of, who was part of the patient population, but I would say the majority were people of color. And, people from China, and there were like the African American community. And so this was my first real exposure to death and dying and extreme
firsthand,
exactly.
Yes.
Extreme poverty and issues that elderly people were facing. But I remember a woman, sometimes people were in there with more severe mental health stuff going on too, but I remember a woman talking about, just telling some story about like guns being fired on the street outside her apartment in the Western Addition, and I didn't believe it. I was like, well, I didn't hear about this in the news. And there was a way where it wasn't just like there were other people. There was a way where we were kind of trying to figure out what was wrong with her. And luckily the group the group of us interns and our supervisors were able to unpack it a bit and realize what we were doing. But it was a huge shift for me in opening up to the possibility that people's lives are really different from mine, and that there's extreme amount of like violence and oppression and stuff that I am being insulated from. Mm-hmm. And I felt so ashamed when I realized how I had treated her or thought about her based on assumptions and lack of ignorance mm-hmm. and privilege. And I'm so grateful to that experience and to have been in an environment where that was caught.
Right.
Because if it hadn't been caught, and I think it doesn't get caught a lot, sure. and people, in the mental health system get pathologized and treated like and gaslit and treated like they're crazy, when actually people just aren't getting that things are different if your skin isn't white.
Right.
And I really just didn't fully understand that.
Yeah.
And, and it's a gradual, that was a huge moment in this gradual process of understanding that happened a long time ago. And I've had a lot of work to do since and continue to.
Oh yeah.
But I don't, living here has been, part of that, and getting to know people who are more activists and who are more engaged in politically and engaged in understanding their impact in the world. And that feels so special and important to me. And nice. I don't want to lose that. So when I became involved at BFF.FM, and started my advice show there, Radical Advice, which I do Tuesdays from 10 a.m. to noon. I started that a year ago. And through that, I got this whole community of people who are like, some people who work in tech and some people who are artists or writers and who happen to like do radio shows on the side. And so many people who really care about the community and being part of a community radio station that's about broadcasting out and being more inclusive and really having really strong values around that. Mm-hmm. And I became more engaged in local politics than I ever have been. And it really reinforced this sense of home. And I've never felt more of a sense of home and stability than, despite all other ways that I feel instability in my life right now, having community and having my apartment have been life-changing for me. Nice. And I didn't have that in the suburbs. Yeah. And I didn't have that with my family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So San Francisco's home.
San Francisco's home, and it's messed up in all kinds of ways, and I really want to fight that. I want to be here for that fight. And I want to use my voice and the projects that I'm doing to help with that. I tend to be a negative person. I mean, I don't like that term. I tend to be skeptical. I tend to focus on what's wrong. And that serves me in a lot of ways, and it can be a helpful quality to have and kind of a miserable way to live sometimes, but whatever. But I think having community and having like-minded people who feel similarly, even if all we're doing is bitching about the situation, right. Knowing that they care too and that they're here too and that we have each other, gives me hope and reminds me, like being part of the radio station or the interactions I have when I'm out in bars doing my podcast, give me hope about this place, that it's not all bad and that there's something to fight for and something that we can save and preserve. And it's not even about, I'm not like a make San Francisco great again. Like I'm sure it's always had problems. Right. It's more like, how do we move forward into the future? And I love technology, like how do we move forward and not screw people over? How do we move forward and be welcoming and be a progressive city technologically and socially, and build systems that really support people and make it so that we are valuing more than just money and capitalism.
Music for the podcast is by Joe Begale. Photos for this episode are by Michelle Kilfeather. Please follow Storied San Francisco on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, please rate and review the show. It takes just a few seconds, and we'd really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for listening. Check back Thursday to hear Lily talk about how she started doing her podcast, A Therapist Walks Into a Bar.